The Woman of the Road. Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to one more narrative that will deeply touch your hearts. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that happened in the Sertão of Alagoas in May 1998, about two women whose destinies crossed on a dusty road. It's a story of courage, solidarity, and rebirth, one of those that makes us believe that even in the most difficult moments, human kindness can flourish like Mandakaru after the rain. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, where are you watching me from? I love knowing that our story reaches hearts all over the world, and don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more narratives that warm the soul. Year, May 1998. Place, outskirts of Delmiro Gouveia, Sertão of Alagoas. The dry wind of the Caatinga blew through the cracks of the adobe house, carrying with it the bitter aroma of jurema and the distant lament of turtle doves. Maria das Dores adjusted the greyish bun at her nape, her calloused hands trembling slightly as she poured corn for the chickens in the dirt courtyard. 4 years. 4 long years since Expedito had departed, taking with him not only his physical presence, but also the voices, laughter, and even the arguments that gave life to that sertanejo dwelling. At 52 years old, she had become a woman of precise gestures and spared words, as if each movement and each syllable were precious goods in a land where everything was scarce. The house, which once harbored dreams of children who never came, now echoed only with her solitary steps and the conversations she held with herself, a habit she had developed to avoid going mad in the absolute silence. The adobe walls, built by Expedito's own hands, kept memories in every crack, in every humidity stain that the scarce rain left when it dared to appear. Her embroidery, the only constant companions, spread across the worm-eaten wooden table, thread flowers that would never wither, little birds that would never fly, but that carried a piece of her soul to the hands of city women, women who probably would never know how much loneliness was sewn into each stitch. That May afternoon, while the sun plummeted reddish behind the Mandacaras, Maria das Dores didn't imagine that her monotonous and predictable life was about to be crossed by a storm of changes. That on the dusty road that cut through the Caatinga, an encounter awaited her. An encounter that would awaken in her chest a courage she herself didn't know she possessed. The walk to Pão de Açúcar had been more tiring than usual. The May sun punished mercilessly, and the red dust stuck to her skin as if wanting to remind her that there was her place, in that arid land, among thorns and stones. Maria das Dores adjusted the burlap bag on her shoulder, satisfied with the money she had gotten for the eggs at the fair, enough for the kerosene that would illuminate her embroidery nights. The wind changed direction when she spotted something unusual on the road. At first she thought it was an injured animal, perhaps a kid that had strayed from the flock. But as she approached, the form took human contours, contours that made her heart race. It was a young woman, fallen face down in the red earth, her dark hair spread like a black fan against the ground. Her bare feet were raw, marked by stones and thorns, and a high fever made her body tremble even under the scorching heat. Maria das Dores knelt beside the young woman, gently touching her burning face. "My child," she whispered, and the voice, hoarse from so much silence, sounded strange even to herself. The young woman was delirious, murmuring incomprehensible words, names that were lost in the wind. But it was when Maria das Dores saw the purple marks on the delicate neck that she understood. That creature was not a victim of drought or common fatigue. She was a victim of something much worse, the violence of men. Her instinct told her to continue on her way, not to get involved. A woman alone in the Sertão already had problems enough to carry those of others. But when the young woman opened her eyes, 2 black wells full of fear and supplication, Maria das Dores felt something awaken in her dried chest, a tenderness she thought dead, a purpose she believed lost. Without hesitating further, she lifted the young woman in her thin arms, surprising herself with her own strength. The way back home seemed endless, but with each step, she felt she carried more than a wounded body. She carried a responsibility that would forever change the silent course of her existence. For 3 days and 3 nights, the adobe house transformed into a small, improvised hospital. Maria das Dores didn't leave for even a minute from the young woman who now rested in her own bed, delirious with fevers that came in waves, like invisible tides that dragged her away and then brought her back to consciousness. Marinalva, that's how she introduced herself when she finally managed to speak clearly, her voice still hoarse but determined. Her eyes carried an ancient sadness, incompatible with the 19 years she appeared to be. Maria das Dores made compresses with damp cloth, prepared teas of lemon balm and mallow, offered spoonfuls of thin broth that the young woman swallowed with difficulty. "I ran away, ma'am," confessed Marinalva at dawn of the third day, when the fever dropped enough for words to find order. "I ran from him like a wild animal fleeing from a hunter." Her hands trembled as she instinctively touched the marks on her neck. "Valdecir, my husband. 2 years beating me, humiliating me, treating me as if I were his property." The story came out in pieces, interspersed with heavy silences and contained tears. A marriage at 17, arranged by parents who saw in the older man a guarantee of future for their daughter. 2 springs lost between blows, kicks and threats. An escape planned in secret, waiting for the moment when he would travel to sell cattle. "I walked 6 days through the Caatinga," murmured Marinalva, "hiding during the day, following the stars at night. I drank water from Pau de Leite, Ate Mandakaru when I found it, until my body couldn't take any more." Maria das Dores felt a knot in her throat grow with each word. She recognized in that story echoes of her own youth, although Expedito had never raised a hand against her. But she knew other women, knew of the silences that hid behind closed doors, of tears dried before anyone could see them. "Here you stay until you heal properly," she declared, and her voice had a firmness that surprised them both. "No one has the right to hurt anyone, no matter what paper they've signed." Marinalva squeezed her hand tightly, as if it were an anchor in the middle of the storm. And in that simple gesture, 2 women wounded by life sealed a silent pact of mutual protection. Thursday arrived with a humid heat that announced rain, and Maria das Dores decided to make her weekly visit to São Josué's store to buy sugar and coffee. Marinalva was much better, managed to walk around the courtyard and had even helped collect the chicken eggs, but still preferred to stay away from curious looks. In the store, the atmosphere was more lively than normal. Voices mixed with the sound of the old radio playing Foros by Luis Gonzaga, but it was a specific conversation that made Maria das Dores' blood freeze in her veins. "Man from outside, arrived yesterday in a black pickup truck, offering 50 reais to anyone who gives news of a young woman who disappeared," commented Dona Raimunda, always well informed about regional affairs. "Says she's his wife, that she left home after a silly argument. 50 reais is a lot of money," observed another customer. "Must be a girl from a good family." "Or he's hiding something," replied São Josué, polishing a glass with more force than necessary. "Man who offers money to find a woman who ran away from home doesn't smell right to me." Maria das Dores bought her things in silence, but her hands trembled slightly as she counted the coins. When she arrived home, she found Marinalva sitting on the porch, staring fixedly at the road as if sensing the approaching danger. "He's here, isn't he?" asked the young woman without taking her eyes off the horizon line. "How do you—" "I smell his scent in the wind," answered Marinalva, slowly standing up. "Valdecir has a way of leaving the air heavy wherever he passes, like when a storm is about to rain." That night, Maria das Dores couldn't sleep a wink. She kept Expedito's old sickle beside the bed and instructed Marinalva to hide in the small back room at the slightest sign of strange movement. The wind moaned through the Caatinga like a lament of a lost soul, and every creak of the house, every distant dog bark made her heart jump. It was as if an invisible predator circled her property, sniffing its prey with the cruel patience of those who know time plays in their favor. But Maria das Dores had made her decision. She wouldn't hand over Marinalva for all the gold in the world. The thunder came from afar, rolling through the Caatinga like an ox cart loaded with stones. Maria das Dores was finishing putting away the chickens when the first thick raindrops began to mark the dusty ground. There was something different in the air, an electricity that didn't come only from the storm that was forming. It was then that she heard the motor noise approaching along the road. Her heart raced when she recognized the sound of a black pickup truck cutting through the night. She ran inside the house where Marinalva was already hiding in the back room, her face pale as candle wax. "The time has come," whispered Maria das Dores, taking the sickle and walking determinedly toward the door. The rain was beginning to fall heavily when 3 men got out of the vehicle. In front, a tall, thin man with a badly trimmed mustache and cruel look. Valdecir, without a doubt. "Good evening, ma'am," he said with false courtesy, taking shelter under the eaves. "I'm Valdecir Santos, looking for my wife who ran away from home after a fight. They told me you might have seen her." "I didn't see any young woman," answered Maria das Dores, firmly holding the sickle. "And now leave my property." Valdecir's false smile dissolved like sugar in rain. "You're lying, old woman. I know she's here." "Marinalva," he shouted toward the house. "Come out now, we have to go home." "She doesn't want to go with you," declared Maria das Dores, taking a step forward. "And here in my house, my word is law." The rain now fell in torrents, turning the earth into red mud. Valdecier's two henchmen moved restlessly, but he contained them with a gesture. His eyes shone with an icy rage that made Maria das Dores understand why Marinalva had fled like a desperate animal. "That woman is mine by right," growled Valdecier. "We married in church. There's signed paper. No one has the right to separate a man from his wife." "Paper doesn't give the right to beat anyone," retorted Maria das Dores, raising the sickle. "Leave here before I call the police." Valdecier laughed, a harsh sound that was lost in the noise of the rain. "Police? Here in the middle of nowhere? You're dreaming, old woman." It was when the miracle happened. From the middle of the storm emerged the figure of So Antonio, the nearest neighbor, carrying his hunting rifle. Behind him, 3 more men from the surroundings, all armed with hoes, sickles, and pieces of wood. "Is there any problem here, comadre?" asked So Antonio, pointing the weapon at Valdecier. The collective courage of the Sertanejo community shone brighter than any lightning in the darkness of the night. The rain washed the earth with the force of one who wanted to purify the world, and there, in that muddy courtyard, a battle was being fought that went far beyond that specific night. It was the eternal confrontation between oppression and dignity, between brutality and protection. Valdecier looked around, calculating his chances against the 5 armed men surrounding him. His henchmen, clearly uncomfortable with the situation that had escalated beyond expectations, began to retreat toward the pickup truck. "This isn't going to stay like this," threatened Valdecier, but his voice no longer had the same firmness as before. "Marinalva is my wife, and I'm going to get her back." "You're not getting anything," declared So Antonio, approaching with the rifle aimed. "The young woman doesn't want to go with you, and here we respect people's will. Now get out of here before things get ugly." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of rain hammering on the tile roof and the truck's hood. Valdecier knew he was at a numerical and territorial disadvantage. Those people knew every inch of that land, every hiding place, every shortcut. He was the foreigner, the invader. "Let's go," he murmured to his companions, slowly retreating. "But this isn't over. She's my wife, and I'm going to recover what's mine." "If you show up here again," shouted Maria das Dores over the noise of the rain, "you'll find the whole community waiting for you. Here we protect our women." The pickup truck left raising mud and leaving behind only the echo of its empty threat. The neighbors remained in the courtyard for a while longer, making sure the men had really gone. When they finally withdrew, So Antonio stayed behind. "Comadre, you were very brave today," he told her, lowering the rifle. "But that man might come back. He looks like someone who doesn't give up easily." "Then we'll be ready," answered Maria das Dores, drying her face wet with rain. "That girl doesn't go back to him even if it's the last thing I do in this life." When she entered the house, she found Marinalva crying silently in the kitchen. They weren't tears of fear, but of gratitude. The gratitude of one who discovered she wasn't alone in the world, that there still existed people willing to fight for what was right. That night, while the storm finally subsided, 2 women embraced in silence, sealing a sisterhood that neither time nor distance could break. Dawn arrived washed and perfumed, as always happens after great rains in the Sertão. The Caatinga seemed to have dressed in new clothes, and even the mandacaras displayed a more vivid green. Maria das Dores woke up with a determination she hadn't felt in a long time. It was time to take definitive action. "Marinalva," she called, while preparing the morning coffee, "today we're going to Delmiro Gouveia to file a police report." The young woman almost dropped the cup she was holding. "Donna Maria, he has contacts in the police. My father always said that Valdecier had protection." "Maybe so," agreed the older woman, "but we're not going to let this pass. You're not the first woman he mistreats, I'm sure, and if we don't do anything, other girls will suffer in his hands." The trip to the city was quite an adventure. So Antonio lent his old pickup truck, and they followed along the dusty road, Marinalva visibly nervous but determined. The Delmiro Gouveia police station was a small and stuffy building, where the police chief, a middle-aged man with a prominent belly, initially showed little interest in the case. "Husband and wife fight," he began, but was interrupted by Maria das Dores's firm gaze. "This here isn't a fight, doctor," she told him, showing the still visible marks on Marinalva's neck. "This is attempted murder, and if you don't do anything, the blood of the next victim will also be on your hands." The police chief sighed but ended up registering the complaint. During the statement, Marinalva revealed shocking details of the abuse she had suffered, and, to everyone's surprise, the police station secretary commented that it wasn't the first time she had heard Valdecir Santos's name. "There are about 3 reports filed against him," murmured the woman, leafing through an old folder, "but they always found a way to make the complaints disappear." "This time it won't disappear," guaranteed Maria das Dores. "I'm going to bring the press. I'm going to talk to the priest, to the women of the city. Everyone is going to know what kind of man this Valdecir is." When they left the police station, the sun was already high and strong. Marinalva seemed lighter, as if an enormous weight had lifted from her shoulders. For the first time since they met, she smiled, a shy smile, but true. "Thank you," she whispered, taking Maria das Dores' calloused hand. "You gave me more than shelter. You gave me courage." 3 weeks after registering the complaint, when the house routine had already established itself in tranquil harmony, a young man appeared at the door, beaten by the midday sun. Tall, thin, with features that reminded one of Marinalva, he carried a small bundle and a guitar tied on his back. "Marinalva?" he called hesitantly. "It's me, Severino, your cousin." The young woman ran to hug him, and for the first time since arriving, Maria das Dores saw her cry tears of pure joy. Severino was 25 years old, worked in Arapiraca as a bricklayer, and had traveled half the state of Alagoas looking for his cousin after learning of her escape. "When I learned you had disappeared," he explained, sitting on the porch while drinking cold water, "I dropped everything and went looking for you. I asked in every city, every little town. A woman in Pão de Açúcar told me she had seen you being carried by a kind lady." Severino's story was also one of overcoming. Orphaned since childhood, raised by uncles, he had learned early that in life one needed to count only on one's own forces. But his loyalty to family was unbreakable, especially to Marinalva, who had been his playmate in childhood. "You can't go back there," he told her, referring to the city where Valdecir lived, "but you also can't spend your whole life hiding. We need to find a way out." Maria das Dores, who had observed the conversation in silence, surprised them both with her proposal. "Why don't you stay here? This house is too big for one person, and 2 heads think better than one." The silence that followed was full of hope. Severino looked around, observing the simple but welcoming house, the spacious courtyard, the caatinga that stretched as far as the eye could see. It was a place where one could start over, where the past couldn't reach. "I know how to work with my hands," he said finally. "I can renovate the house, make improvements, help with the garden, and I can teach you to embroider," offered Marinalva to Maria das Dores. "My mother taught me some different stitches. We can make more pieces to sell at the fair." That afternoon, the 3 walked around the courtyard planning changes. A new fence, a bigger chicken coop, maybe even a cistern to store rainwater. It was as if Maria das Dores' abandoned house was awakening from a deep sleep, ready to shelter new dreams and new possibilities. Summer arrived with its relentless heat, but brought with it a renovating energy that completely transformed the dynamics of the small property. Severino revealed himself to be a tireless worker, getting up before sunrise to take advantage of the coolest hours of the day. In 2 weeks, he had fixed the leaking roof, replaced the rotten boards of the porch, and begun to build a wooden fence around the courtyard. His muscles quickly got used to rural work, and his hands, accustomed to cement and brick, learned to deal with caatinga wood and red earth. Marinalva, in turn, revealed talents she didn't even know she had. Besides helping with the embroidery, she created a small garden at the back of the house, planting cilantro, chives, peppers, and cherry tomatoes. Her delicate hands, which once trembled with fear, now caressed the earth with maternal affection. "Look at that," she said one morning, showing the first green shoots emerging from the humid earth. "It even seems like a miracle, doesn't it? You plant a tiny little seed and it becomes food." Maria das Dores observed these transformations with a mixture of joy and surprise. Her house, which for so long had been a silent mausoleum dedicated to Expedito's memory, now pulsed with new life. Marinalva's laughter echoed through the rooms, Severino's hammer marked the rhythm of the days, and even the chickens seemed happier, laying bigger and more frequent eggs. The nights became special. After dinner, Severino would take his guitar and play music by Luis Gonzaga, Jackson do Pandeiro, and Dominguinhos. Marinalva sang with a sweet voice that reminded one of the Bentiveo's song At Dusk, and Maria das Dores discovered she still remembered the songs her mother used to sing when she was a child. Asa Branca, Ultimo Pau de Arara, Pagode Russo. The songs filled the Sertanejo night with nostalgia and hope. Neighbors occasionally appeared to participate in these improvised musical sessions, and Maria das Dores' house became a meeting point for the community. "I never thought I'd be so happy again," she confessed one night to Marinalva, while they embroidered by lamplight. "You brought joy to this house that I thought was dead." "We have to thank you, Donna Maria," answered the young woman. "You saved my life, and now you're giving us a family." A month after Severino's arrival, Seu Antonio appeared with news that would make everyone breathe more easily. Valdecir Santos had been arrested in Arapiraca, accused of aggression against another woman. This time, a witness had filmed the aggression with a cell phone. "The bastard was too smart for his own safety," explained Seu Antonio, sitting on the new porch that Severino had built. "He tried to hit a woman in front of the bank, thinking no one was going to interfere. But there was a boy with one of those little filming machines, and he recorded everything." The news spread like fire in dry straw. Other women began to appear to tell their own stories of abuse suffered at Valdecir's hands. The police chief of Delmiro Gouveia, pressured by the case's repercussion, finally reopened the reports that had been mysteriously filed away. "He's going to stay in prison for a good while," guaranteed Seu Antonio. "And when he gets out, he'll have to answer for all the cases. Things have changed, comadre. The women are talking. They're not afraid anymore." Marinalva received the news with a mixture of relief and disbelief. For so long she had lived in fear, looking over her shoulder, expecting him to appear at any moment. Now, for the first time in years, she could breathe without feeling the weight of constant threat. That week, she made an important decision. She would go to the city to give a new statement, this time with all the details she had previously omitted out of fear. Severino accompanied her, and Maria das Dores insisted on going too. "It's not just for you," explained the older woman. "It's for all the women who still suffer in silence. We have to show that it's possible to fight, that it's possible to win." At the police station, Marinalva spoke for more than 2 hours. She told about the beatings, the threats, the forced isolation from friends and family. Each word was a brick in the construction of justice that was finally rising. When they left the police station, the sun was setting behind the hills, painting the sky orange and pink. Marinalva stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, closed her eyes and breathed deeply. "It's over," she whispered. "It's really over." And for the first time since they had met, Maria das Dores saw the young woman cry tears of total liberation. The Sertanejo winter arrived with its cool mornings and mild afternoons, bringing with it a subtle but profound transformation in the house dynamics. Maria das Dores began to notice discreet glances between Severino and Marinalva, smiles that lasted a little longer than necessary, hands that touched casually during meals. At first she worried. Marinalva was still recovering from the traumas of marriage with Valdecir, and the last thing she needed was more emotional complications. But as she observed the couple more attentively, she perceived that what was growing between them was something completely different from the young woman's previous relationship. Severino treated Marinalva with a delicacy that was moving. He never pressured her, never invaded her personal space, always asked before making any more intimate gesture. It was as if he knew instinctively that she needed to relearn what true love was, the kind that protects, that strengthens, that liberates instead of imprisoning. "Donna Maria," Marinalva told her one afternoon, while they watered the garden together, "can I ask a kind of silly question?" "Ask, my child. How does one know if they're truly loving? How does one know if it's not just neediness?" Maria das Dores stopped watering the peppers and looked deeply into the young woman's eyes. It was a question loaded with fear, but also with hope. "True love, girl, is like this garden here," she said, gesturing toward the green plants growing around. "It needs time, care, patience. It doesn't sprout from one hour to another, and it doesn't wither at the first strong wind. And when Valdecir said he loved me, that wasn't love, it was possession. True love wants to see us grow, wants to see us fly. Possession wants to tie down, wants to break wings." That night, during the usual musical session, Severino played a different song, a slow waltz he had learned from an accordion player friend. Marinalva began to sing softly, and the two got lost in a moment of communion so pure that Maria das Dores felt her eyes moisten. That's how love should be, gentle as an evening breeze, strong as mandakaru roots, free as the flight of a bentaveo. Spring came early that year, bringing generous rains that transformed the Caatinga into a flowered garden. Marinalva and Severino had become inseparable, but maintained a respectful discretion that made Maria das Dores proud. They had learned that true love is not in a hurry. It was on one of those mornings perfumed with mandacaru flowers that Severino sought Maria das Dores for a serious conversation. She was in the yard hanging clothes on the line when he approached, visibly nervous. "Donna Maria, I wanted to ask you something. Tell me, my son. I wanted to ask for Marinalva's hand in marriage." The phrase remained suspended in the air like a butterfly perched on a flower. Maria das Dores stopped hanging clothes and looked deeply at the young man. She saw in him everything that Valdecir was not: honesty, gentleness, respect, honest work. "And does she know about this?" "We've already talked about it. She wants to, but said only if you give your blessing. For her, you're more than a godmother. You're like a mother." Maria das Dores's heart filled with an emotion she couldn't name. In less than a year she had gained a daughter, and now would gain a son. The house that once sheltered only silences and longings would now be the stage for new dreams, new beginnings. "You have my blessing," she said, hugging Severino. "But with one condition. I want you to continue living here. This house needs children, grandchildren life." The wedding was simple, held at the Sacred Heart Church in Del Miro Gouveia on a sunny Saturday morning. Marinalva wore a simple white dress that she herself had embroidered with tiny flowers, and Severino was elegant in his borrowed navy blue suit. The entire community attended the ceremony. Donna Raimunda brought a 3-tier cake. Su Antonio played accordion, and even the police chief who had registered the complaint against Valdecir appeared to congratulate them. "May God bless this union," said the priest at the end of the ceremony, "and may it be an example that true love always conquers violence." When the newlyweds kissed, a round of applause echoed through the small church. Maria das Dores cried tears of joy, feeling that Expedito, wherever he was also smiling. The party continued until late hours in the house courtyard, with music, dancing, and stories told around the bonfire. It was as if all the pain of the past had been transformed into celebration of the present. 6 months after the wedding, on a morning when the sun rose particularly golden, Marinalva sought Maria das Dores with news that would make the house's heart beat even stronger. "Donna Maria," she said with a shy but radiant smile, "I think you're going to be a grandmother." Maria das Dores dropped the coffee cup she was holding, but didn't even worry about the pieces scattered on the floor. She hugged Marinalva tightly, laughing and crying at the same time. "Are you sure, my child?" "I'm sure. I went to the health clinic yesterday with Severino." 2.5 months, the news spread through the community like summer wind, bringing joy to all the neighbors who had followed the journey of that improvised family that had formed by chance, but solidified through love. During the following months, the house prepared for the baby's arrival. Severino built a crib from Araira wood. Marinalva embroidered diapers and blankets with bird drawings, and Maria das Dores rescued recipes for porridge and baby food that she had learned from her own mother. "How do you want it to be, boy or girl?" asked Maria das Dores one afternoon, while they chose fabrics at the fair. "It doesn't matter," answered Marinalva, caressing her belly that was already beginning to round. "I just want it to be healthy and happy, and never to know the violence I knew." "It won't know it," guaranteed Maria das Dores. "This child will grow up surrounded by love, respect, affection. It will know what a real family is." When the first contractions began on a rainy December morning, the entire neighborhood mobilized. Donna Raimunda came to help with the birth. Seu Antonio went to get the midwife from the nearest town, and Severino almost fainted from nerves. Maria Eduarda was born at noon sharp, when the sun finally managed to break through the heavy clouds. She was a pink and healthy girl, with strong lungs that announced her arrival to the world with a vigorous cry. "Look at that," whispered Marinalva, holding her daughter for the first time. "What intelligent little eyes. She's going to be smart like Grandma." Maria das Dores, holding her newborn granddaughter, felt that her life was complete. She had found her family in the most unexpected way possible, and now that family was growing, perpetuating the love and protection she had once offered to a stranger on the road. 2 years had passed since Maria Eduarda's arrival, and Maria das Dores's adobe house had become a true home. The girl, now with wobbly but determined steps, ran around the courtyard chasing chickens, filling the air with her crystalline laughter. On an autumn afternoon, while Marinalva sewed on the porch and Severino worked in the new room he was building, as another baby was on the way, a young woman appeared on the road. She walked slowly, carrying a bundle on her back and constantly looking over her shoulder, as if expecting to be pursued. Maria das Dores, who was watering her plants, immediately recognized the signs. The defensive posture, the fear in her eyes, the poorly disguised marks on her face. It was another Marinalva, another woman fleeing violence in search of refuge. "Excuse me, ma'am," said the young woman when she reached the gate. "Could you give me some water? I've been walking for days." "Come in, my child," answered Maria das Dores without hesitation, "and tell us what happened." While the young woman, who introduced herself as Socorro, drank water and ate what Marinalva quickly prepared, her story unfolded. Another violent marriage, another desperate escape, another woman seeking freedom and dignity. "You can stay as long as you need," offered Maria das Dores with the same firmness she had shown years before. "Here no one hurts anyone." Severino and Marinalva approved the decision without hesitation. They knew better than anyone the value of the protection they had received and were ready to offer it to other women who needed it. That night, Maria das Dores sat on the porch looking at the stars. Maria Eduarda slept in her lap. Marinalva and Severino talked quietly about preparations for the second baby, and Socorro finally rested in safety. She thought of Expedito, how proud he would be to see what his house had become, a safe harbor for wounded hearts, a place where love conquered fear, where solidarity flourished like Mandakaru after rain. She understood then that her life hadn't ended when she became a widow. It had only transformed, gaining a deeper purpose, to be guardian of hope, protector of the vulnerable, mother of all the children that destiny brought to her door. The wind blew gently through the Caatinga, carrying the perfume of nocturnal flowers and the distant sound of an owl. Maria das Dores smiled, knowing she had found her mission in the world, to be the woman of the road who would never leave anyone alone on the journey. And so under the starred mantle of the Alagoas Sertão, a family continued to grow, united not by blood but by the most powerful of bonds, the love that protects, that welcomes, that transforms pain into hope and solitude into home.